Good afternoon. So today we are going to do some exciting Python free code camp. It's been a minute since I've done this, so I'm breaking things already. But it's been a minute since I've done this, so I wanted to try to slowly get back into it as well. So I love that Freecodecamp has this Python certification that you can go ahead and walk through, and it's a great fundamental, or it's great for me to brush up on fundamentals. So let's go ahead and get started. Where I left off is I am working on integers and floating point numbers. So let's go ahead and read all about integers and floating point numbers. So integers and floats are primary numeric data types in Python. And the way you would describe an integer and a float is that integers are whole numbers. Floats are anything with decimals, such as 74.28 or something like that. So that's how I distinguish between an integer and a float. So with them you can look at what integers and floats are. So how to perform arithmetic calculations with them, and add several methods Python provides for working with both of them. So integers are whole numbers, as I described before, without decimal points. I forgot to mention that sometimes there's no numbers can refer to positive or negative. Yeah. Hello. Yum. Domino's always sounds like a great idea. Definitely don't forget the topper sticks, or not topper sticks, the cheese sticks that come along with it, because that stuff is pretty good too at Domino's. So okay, so here's how to perform an addition with operation with the integers. So you can go ahead and add them together with the addition operator, and you can perform a subtraction with these two integers. And here's how you multiply with the asterisk. And here's how you divide by 2. So floats are positive and negative numbers with decimal points. Even like 0.0 or 2.0, that's automatically a float. The same rules apply for adding and subtracting and multiplying. But if you add an integer and a float, the result is automatically converted to a float. That is good to know. So when you add these two together, it's automatically a float, which would make sense because you think about it when I think about like remainders, or I think about anything left over, because you think about 56 is a whole number, and you have 5.4, and as you can see, 56 plus 5, that's a whole, because when you think about math, 56.5, these are all both whole numbers, and then the 0.4 is left like hanging and remaining left over. So with that would turn it into a whole number. So that would make sense. Like subtraction, multiplication, and division. So if you mix integer and floats, everything automatically always comes into a float. That makes sense. You can always perform more complex arithmetic a calculation, such as getting the remainder of two numbers with the modular operator, which is a floor division. So it goes down in exponentiation with both integers. Excuse me on that. So we're trying to learn a little bit more. So when you mod this together, 56 mod 12, you're asking, hey, how many times can 12 go into 56? And as you can see, 12 goes into 56 8 times. And then 5.4, and then 12. Oh, this is actually 12, my float 2, mod my float 1, which is 5.4. So the floor division divides two numbers and returns the greatest integer less than or equal to the result. This is done with the double forward slash. So floor division So if you're going to say 56 divided by 12, and it's going to go ahead and round down. 12 times 4, 48. Yeah, 48. And this is 12 divided by 5.4. How many times 2? It'll be 2, because 5 times 2 is 10. You have a remainder of 2.4. But if we're going to go ahead and round down, it will be 2. So exponent, I know that you can say exponent, raises a number to the power of another. And this is done with 2 double asterisks, the 2 double stars. And then Python also has these built-in functions for converting either numeric data or strings into integers or floats. So you can use the float function to convert an integer into a float by adding a decimal point of 0 to the integer. I see when you do a float, then automatically adds a decimal point of 0. Also, you can turn this into an integer function to convert a float into an integer, which removes the decimal point and everything after it from the float, you pass it. So anything after the decimal gets removed, so all we get is just a 12. Also, you can use the same built-in function to convert a string into either a float or an integer. So you have a string of 45, you can convert that into an integer and it should be 45. And then you have a float of 7.8, that will become an actual number of 7.8. A string of 7.8 becomes a float. Here are other methods Python provides for working with integers and floats. So round function rounds a number to the specific number of decimal places. So it'll go ahead and take in the number and how many places you want it to round to. By default, this rounds to the nearest integer. And it will return a whole number with no decimal places. Absolute returns absolute value. So negative 15 will be positive 15. These are going to be interesting. I haven't run into these before with binary representation or octal or hexadecimal. Hexadecimal is just kidding. I thought it was going to be, hexadecimal is going to be like your, I was completely thinking about something different. So hexadecimal is not what I was thinking about. Power raises power to perform a power of another or performs modular exponentials. This is equivalent to saying 2 to the power of 3. I'll be right back. Okay, so I am back. Let's go ahead and keep discussing all of this fun stuff. So, okay, so I love that Freecodecamp also has this bottom portion of like these questions and answers just to make sure that you are reading it. So, okay, so what does a double slash operator do in Python? So what this does is it does division and it's going to go ahead and round down. It divides to a number and returns the greatest integer less than or equal to the results. Performs regular division and returns a float. It's definitely not, it raises the number to the power. No, it doesn't. That's exponents. It represents a comment in Python. It doesn't. It is the hashtag that represents a comment. Performs regular division and returns a float. No, it wouldn't. So this seems like the best answer. Let me know if you think it's a different type of answer, if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. Let me know down in the chat. Okay, which statement correctly describes integers in Python? So integers can only store positive whole numbers. This is false. We know that they can store negative numbers as well. Integers are numbers with decimal points, which is false, which we know that floats are numbers with decimal points. So integers are whole numbers without decimal points, either positive or negative. Thus far, this sounds like the good statement. So integers automatically converts to floats when performing division. Not automatically. It's only when an integer is divided by a float is when it will go ahead and turn into a float. So C seems like our best option. So which method returns the absolute value of a number? ABS, round function, sum function, or max function. So when you're talking about absolute value of a number, the absolute function here will do it. We did it. Okay, how do augmented assignments work? Ooh, what does that mean? Augmented assignment combines a binary operation with an assignment in one tree. It takes a variable. Ooh, I don't think I've ever heard of augmented assignment. It takes a variable, it applies an operation on it with another value, and stores the result back into the same variable. It takes a variable, applies an operation to it with another variable, and stores it back in the variable. Okay, no, I've done this before, but I never knew that the term for it was called augmented assignment. So if you're familiar with a language like JavaScript, you've probably heard of the addition assignment operator. Yes, plus equal. Essentially, what this is in JavaScript, and I have used it in Python before, is like when you have a running total. You're going to keep adding 5, you're going to keep adding 10, and stuff like that. You're going to keep adding these numbers together, and that's what's going to happen with these plus equal, minus equal. Those exist in Python too. The only difference is they're referred to as augmented assignments. That's good to know. That's called augmented assignments. Looks like the variable, the operator equals the value. So this variable, it is equal to whatever the variable is, whatever the plus equal of the value. Oh yes, okay, so I've done this before, I just never knew it was called augmented assignments. So you have a 10 and you're going to keep running a plus, and then you're going to say, hey, I start out at a 10, let me go add another 5, plus equal, let me add that. So this is my var is set at 10 right now for the value, but we're going to say, hey, plus equal, keep add another 5 is what we're saying. And here you can say, hey, my var is equal to 10, or you can say my var is equal to whatever my var currently has plus 5. I do agree it's a little bit more concise and readable versus you have to pick out the variable and write it again out like this. I like that because it does reduce redundancy and potential errors. It helps keep your code dry. Essentially, at the end of the day, we definitely want to keep our code dry. So let's look at others. So you can minus equal. So 14 minus equal 3 is 11. You can even multiply, or you can even divide. That's pretty cool. For me, I'm usually always used to just doing a running total. So it would always just be a plus equal. Computes the remainder of the left variable divided by the right. So essentially, it's still just doing modulo. Oh, there are other ones, and these are for bitewise operators. They include this. Well, you can also do it for strings. Plus equal. Yes, you can say hello times equals 3. Repeat 3 times. You can do this mod this, and I don't think that would work. But you can always add, you can always multiply, but you can't subtract, which makes sense because hello is just a string by itself, and then the world hasn't been added to the hello string yet. That would make sense. If you're wondering if increment and decrement operators work in Python, they don't. That's because Python deliberately avoids C-style increments and decrement shortcuts in order to keep the language clear and explicit. Which is so interesting because I am so positive that Python is built over C. I'm pretty sure. Is Python built on C? But that would make sense because essentially what Python is, the language that Python was created is it's meant to be very explicit. You read the code as it's stated. So I can definitely see the authors of Python being they want to make sure that you understood what you're reading. Because when you look at plus, it doesn't really make sense. But if you do plus equal, it makes a little bit more sense. You're understanding, hey, I'm going to keep adding to the total. Plus equal. That you're incrementing by the value of 1. Writing plus x just applies plus twice and increment anything. So you're saying 5 and you're saying plus equal 1. So it's going to increase by 1. What is the main advantage of using augmented? They automatically convert data types. They don't really convert data types. If you have a string, you multiply it with a number. Hi, thank you for stopping by. I hope Alyssa and you are having a great time out there. Thank you. Thank you for the sweet words. Show me more pictures on Instagram. I've been waiting for more updates, Elder. Okay, so what is the main advantage? They prevent all possible syntax errors. They provide a concise way to update variables without repeating the variable name. We knew that because they stated that as well. They make mathematical operations faster. The concise way, I remember reading it in the paragraph, is what they stated. So what happens when you write increment and decrement like this operators? They won't work. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I don't think they mentioned anything about Python 2 or Python 3. They won't work. That's because they don't work. So I assume they're going to cause an errors. Yes. Oh, I bet, Elder. Okay, I can't wait to see more. I think they're gonna break it. We're gonna find out if I'm right or wrong. So which augmented assignment operator raises a variable to a power and stores the result back to that variable. So we know that with 1 star is to multiply, but 2 stars is to raise it to the power. I knew it. Okay. They won't work exactly like in C and C++. I think they are this with no actual, they won't work. Okay, perfect. Beautiful. So now we're jumping into functions. So functions are reusable pieces of code that run when you call them. Many programming languages come with built-in functions that makes it easier to get started. Python is no exception, and we already covered some built-in functions like print. And print is essentially in JavaScript is like a console.log. It will go ahead and just show you, like you can say print in strings hello world, and that will pop up to your terminal, pop up to your screen. Another helpful built-in function is input. And with the input function, from what I recall, it's essentially asking a user, hey, user, you can go ahead and provide an information, such as a number, if I'm looking for a number, or a string, and I will go ahead and do something with that. As you can see, hey, we're going to ask them what their name is, and then we can go ahead and print out that name that they wrote for the input. I actually don't use input as much as I should, but maybe I should start to. So the integer of true is 1, integer of false is 0. You can use the def keyword followed by the name of the function you want to use. So def means to define. So we're going to define this function. So we're going to define a function called hello, and it's going to go ahead and print hello world. So whenever we run the function and we invoke it, then it's going to hello world will always pop out. Notice the indentation right here. The indentation matters heavily in Python. I have had a lot of errors happen where Python will tell me like, hey, I don't understand what's going on. So yeah. Though you can use either 2 or 4 spaces, the Python style guide recommends using 4 spaces. With Visual Studio Code, it will automatically format it and make it really pretty for you. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. But it's good to know about the spaces. So we can go ahead and call, so we're going to define a function called calculate somewhere. It's going to go ahead and take in 2 parameters of a and b, and then it's going to go ahead and print a plus b. So we are going to assume a is going to be, a and b are both numbers, but if they are strings, that might be different, and that will concat instead of being able to add together. So to use the parameters, you have to pass in a certain function arguments, which we're going to pass in 3 and 1 as the arguments. And then you can see that it comes out to be 4. But if you go ahead, oh yeah, definitely, I agree with that. I have been in and out. I've been out of doing any coding for a while, and I wanted to go ahead and make sure I brush up on some fundamentals. I highly agree with being able to try it out. I do definitely agree with that. I also want to check out Freecodecamp Python certification because I think this is a good refresher for me to go ahead and refresh on my Python fundamentals, and also like make sure I hone in on what I missed out on the past couple months. But I definitely agree. More to come, because with the Freecodecamp Python certification, I saw that they had some certain projects that they're working on. Also, I was planning to work on a project in a little bit too as well. I've been out of touch of making projects. I do miss making projects as well. I've been out of touch of working with React and working with web-based applications, so I would definitely will get back into that. But yes, I definitely recommend to actually like build something, work with all of this instead of just reading all about it. So I highly agree. So function also uses a special return keyword to exit the function and return a value. If you don't explicitly use return, Python will just return none, because you can print. Otherwise, you're going to say print my sum. It won't go ahead and do that. Prints the sum of a and b, but it doesn't return anything. So then we assign its result to my sum. So the value is actually none, because printing is different from return. Now return will go ahead and return back the 4, which was restored here. So what is the default return value of a function in Python? It's going to be none. So what is the term for a placeholder variable in a function? When we think about the way initially when I first started out coding, I got really confused between placeholder and argument, and then I was like, parameter and argument. But the more I started working with functions and the more I started passing things in and started understanding all of that, when I think about parameters, I think about placeholders. So essentially, they're just there waiting for something to come in and kick them out of their spots. So the arguments are the ones that are actually going to be used. So when you think about a placeholder, think about parameters. And also it helps that they both start with P, so that's how I kind of remember that. So what keyword is used to find a custom function? So we're going to say def. Yes. I love learning about scope. Let's figure this out. So in Python, scope determines the point in which you can access a variable. It's what controls the lifetime of a variable and how it is resolved in different parts of the code. So to correctly determine scope follows the LEGB rule. Oh, this is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of LEGB rule, the acronyms like that. So local is defined within the functions. Enclosing means it's in the nested functions. Global means that it's on the top level, so you can access it from everywhere. Built-in scope is reserved names in Python for predefined functions. So here, local scope means that a variable declared inside a function or class can be accessed within that function. So you see my var is identified inside the function. Therefore, my var can only be accessed inside of this function and not outside. As you can see, it's locally scoped to my function. And you're gonna print my var, but you can't print my var because it's not accessible. So enclosing scope means that a scope is nested inside. And when I think about this, I do think about when I think about enclosing scope, I think about nested for loops, because you do different type of other functions inside it as well for nested for loops. So I do think about that. The inner function of the inner func can freely access the message here defined in the outer function. However, note that the outer function cannot access variables defined within any, so it's not able to go ahead and access it here. So res is not defined because it can't access res here. So one solution to initialize res is making it an empty string right up here, and then you can make it a non-local variable. So global scope refers to variables that are declared outside of any of the functions. So I definitely use global scope a lot to go ahead and initialize a variable that can be used inside of the function. So I've definitely used this a lot. Okay. So as you can see, you can initialize this variable on the outside and you can go ahead and use it here. You can always modify it later too. So finally, built-in functions refers to all of Python's built-in functions. So your string, your type is instance, your what am I thinking of? Your string, your integer, your bool. So that's what I'm definitely thinking about. So it's the rule that they determine for the scope of a variable is LEGB. What does non-local keyword do? Make a variable. A non-local variable, we saw it here. It's allow modification. Oh my gosh, hi! Long time no talk, how are you? Oh my gosh. It's 7 your time. It's almost your bedtime, Richard. Right? I believe. So, a non-local keyword. Oh, I appreciate you stopping by and saying hi. That's funny. Oh my gosh, have fun in NYC. Take pictures. Are you walking around? It allows modifying. What word, keyword can you use to modify? Global. Yes. Okay. So it's my first day back getting into it, but I definitely want